You find yourself standing in the decay of a long-abandoned toy factory. Dim moonlight streams in through the broken windows as the musty smell of old plastic and rust assaults your nostrils. A towering figure looms before you. The only sign of life in the room is your own breath as it stirs the deep blue fur, but the eyes seem to follow you. You turn your back to the statue and venture further.
But why? Why keep going? It's a video game. You don't have to continue. Why does the fear draw you in? I'm going to ask you a question. Don't overthink it, just answer. Is fear a positive or a negative emotion? Most of us would say negative, right? So why the fuck are you guys so obsessed with horror content? Okay, look, I never used to like horror content. To be honest, I couldn't wrap my mind around why anyone liked it. So I just wrote it all off with a few easy answers. Some people are good at facing their fears. Humans are morbidly curious. Well, certain people love the feeling of an adrenaline rush. Whereas some people are just dark. Like something's off, I don't know. Disturbing content for disturbing people, I guess. That's what I used to think, but then I played Poppy Playtime and something changed. Let me be clear, I didn't want to play it. I really didn't want to play it. But I run a little gaming channel and my co-host thought it would be fun to force me to play through it on camera so the whole internet could laugh at my misery. But after playing through all the chapters, I gotta say, I fucking hated it. What is wrong with you people? Okay, look, I didn't hate all of it, just most of it. But that's because I'm a white knuckler, one of the 3 types of people who approach recreational fear. I'll get into what that means in a bit, but for now, all you need to know is I feel very stressed and sometimes sick to my stomach when consuming horror content. You might be different. See, everyone on Earth is either fear approaching or fear avoidant. Approachers find some level of value in the spooks, and avoiders just don't. Are they cowards? Should we look down on them? Are we better than them? Yo, are we better than them? For real though, tons of people are avoiders, and that's okay. One poll showed a little less than half of adults actually like anything horror. So those are the fear avoiders. Then you have the fear approachers. The weird thing is, some approachers still don't like scary stuff. If you hate how you feel when you're playing or watching or reading horror, you're not automatically an avoider. Actually, the fact that you're watching this video right now is proof of that. That's because not all approachers are the same. We don't all get the same thing out of the scares. But there is one thing we do all have in common. I mean, other than the fact that we all consume horror content. This might seem obvious, but I'll say it anyway. Playing a scary game affects you much more than watching something scary. Kinda makes sense that more people watch Markiplier play through the first FNAF than bought the entire series of games combined. I'm not kidding, look it up. It's because of a concept called the protective frame. The protective frame is how your brain distinguishes between horror content and actual danger. You're okay foraging for scrap in dark, monster-infested corridors with just a shovel because you know that you're not actually going to get got. And you gotta do the company proud, baby. But there's levels to it. Some people like a little more cushion between them and the screamy weemies. In one study of gamers who played versus watched PT, those who played had a greater heart rate and were more frightened. Now you might be someone who likes having the sticks. Your frame tolerance might be higher because that's your horror sweet spot. But that sweet spot is different for everyone. Very few people can handle scary VR games because the protective frame is so much more invisible. But with no protective frame at all, no one enjoys horror. Surprise! People don't actually like getting chased down by murderers. One experiment had their subjects watch a movie with authentic scenes of living monkeys getting their brains scooped out and real children getting the skin of their face peeled away before surgery. How's that make you feel? Everyone doing good? How's everyone feeling? Most of the subjects refused to keep watching because even though they weren't seeing that shit in person, they knew it was real. That's a weak frame and way past most people's horror sweet spot. I had trouble sleeping after I played through the first chapter of Poppy Playtime. I kept getting flashes of Huggy Wuggy and all his fucking rows of teeth. My sweet spot, I scare easy. But I think the first time I ever chose to dip my toe into the shallow end of the fear pool was with Phasmophobia. No, I didn't play Phasmophobia. I watched it on YouTube. The crazy thing is I actually found it kind of comforting. Something about watching 4 goobers run around creaky mansions and abandoned psych wards screaming their heads off. It just gave me the warm and fuzzies, and I hope that doesn't make me a psychopath. No, but I think it landed right in my personal horror sweet spot. The protective frame was pretty strong there. I knew it was a video game. I don't meet that many ghosts in real life. And all the zany goofs created this cozy little cocoon of safety where I could just sit back and sip my little cup of orange juice. I know that's pathetic, but listen, I used to be genuinely terrified of Endermen in Minecraft, and that game came out when I was an adult, so I'm trying, okay? All right, but none of that explains why you like horror, and that's what you're here for, so let's get into it. Let me ask you a question. Which of these hits closest to home for you? Horror makes me feel alive. Horror helps me get over my fears. Horror helps me cope with life. Think about it for a second. Whichever statement hit you the hardest probably says something about the kind of fear approacher you are. You're either an adrenaline junkie, a white knuckler, or a dark coper. Horror adrenaline junkies are not necessarily the same as thrill seekers. You might like to bungee jump and rock climb and whitewater raft, or you might not. Statistically, there's no correlation. In this context, it's about the sensations you feel within the protective frame of horror content. The excitement, the suspenses, the chills. You upregulate all these feelings and immerse yourself in the rush of the fear. So you love this shit. You love it. Honestly, you're probably the most based of the 3 personas. You keep it pretty simple. You like the rush and you don't need to explain yourself. I think if you ask most fear avoiders to picture the average horror content enjoyer, the adrenaline junkie is what comes to mind. But it's only one flavor. For you guys, boredom can be a driving force. You're not the only ones curing boredom with fear, but you are more likely to do that. If you consume so much content that you need a game to be scary in order to keep you engaged, maybe you just need to, I gotta be honest, I do not understand this kind of recreational fear consumption. There's nothing wrong with it, I just don't get it. I'm sure it has to do with my persona of consumption, the white knuckler. White knucklers are genuinely afraid of scary movies and do not necessarily enjoy the suspenseful aspects of these films. Unlike adrenaline junkies who try to maximize their arousal, white knucklers tend to downregulate. We're a strange breed of horror consumers. This begs the question, why put yourself through something you hate? Thank you for asking. It's because we're insane and hate being happy. No, actually, there are a few reasons. One of the big ones is to learn about ourselves, to learn our limits. One of the guys behind the study that developed these 3 distinct horror personas summed it up pretty well.
Horror kind of offers them a chance to push their boundaries and learn the limits of their fear and really learn how they respond when they're afraid. We're not very good or very practiced at dealing with fear and anxiety. And so when inevitably we feel that way, it's really difficult for us to kind of work through that.
Us white knucklers are really bad at handling the spooky, scary skeletons. They genuinely do send shivers down our spine. So horror lets us face that fear in a very low stakes setting. Like, it doesn't matter that I turned off Signalis after the very first jump scare, it's just a game. And the important thing is, I'm never playing it again. Before playing Sucker for Love, I had no idea what I would do if a bunch of spirit horrors flooded my apartment and tried to drain the life from my eyes. Would I cower in the corner and give up? Or would I push through and get that smooch from Big Cthulhu Mommy? Well, now I know. I'd make my friend beat the game while I watch. Like I said, white knucklers, we're weird. The icky feelings often linger with us, and we hate the process, and we hate everything for a while, even after the spooks are over. But we push through because of some internal goal we set for ourselves. That brings us to the most Chad horror consumer, the dark coper. Honestly, I wish I was a dark coper. You guys are metal as hell, and you seem to get the most out of horror. Your whole category was a fairly recent discovery. We just didn't know you were out there. So what does it mean to be a dark coper? You guys use horror to help you manage feelings of anxiety and depression. You also use it to discover more about yourself and grow as a person. And on top of all of that, you still manage to enjoy the feeling of being scared. You're like this super breed between adrenaline junkies and white knucklers. If you're the kind of person that plays through some scary game and you walk away feeling like, hey, my own life isn't that bad because I've just seen that it could be nightmarishly worse. Congrats, you're one of the elite. Existential problems? Nothing a little Resident Evil can't fix. Anxiety? Apply some marble hornets directly to the problem area. God, I'm so jealous of you guys. So now that you know the basics, I got a question for you. If you had to guess which kind of person uses recreational horror the most to grow into a better person, which persona would you pick? Which one of the 3? The answer surprised me. It's the Dark Cooper. Why did it surprise me? Well, while I now get how badass you are, I didn't always think that way. I had a roommate who was really into SCPs. Like, he was at that level where he would try to lore dump them on me, even though I did not need that smoke in my life. As a person, he was the embodiment of the tortured soul archetype. He was heavily depressed, and he constantly fought a lot of dark thoughts. Sometimes he would get really drunk, and they would all start to spill out. It really freaked me out a few times. My experience living with him and trying to be there for him really colored my view of those who immerse themselves in recreational horror in order to cope with life. So while I thought Dark Coopers were very intriguing, I also kind of judged them and thought they were probably all psychopaths, and I know that's not fair, but that is what I thought. If I knew then what I do now, I think I would have had a lot more respect for the flavor of scares that he gravitated to. I remember this one time I watched him play Layers of Fear. A few of us were all huddled up together in a dark room. The only light was what flickered from the glow of the TV. I was terrified. I wanted to crawl out of my skin or into it or something, but I stayed and watched. Partly to impress the woman I'm now married to, and partly because I wanted to see what would happen. I wanted the payoff. I wanted to see what all the symbolism and the clues were leading up to. Good horror tends to give you a reason to stick around. Sucker for Love keeps it simple. At every moment, there's a smooch meter just hovering there, staring you in the face. You'll suffer through the tension and the fear because you want the payoff of smooching with a big eldritch mommy. Layers of Fear and Poppy Playtime are the kind of games that keep you engaged because there's so much mystery, so much you don't know yet. They demand you stay locked in. If you look away, even for a second, you might get jumped by the shadow in the corner. That's another reason why you like the scares. For better or worse, they demand your attention. The research on recreational fear is quickly evolving, especially with video games. There's a ton more fascinating stuff out there that I couldn't cover in this video, but here's some bonus round stuff. This is why you're obsessed with being scared. Boredom. When you're scared, you're not bored. Curiosity. Humans don't actually want to be in danger. We want to know what it would feel like to be in danger. We're curious. Bragging rights. Honestly, it feels so good to square up against Lady Dimitrescu and tell your friends, she's not even scary. Virtue. We're taught from a young age that it's virtuous to face your fears and weakness to run from them. Recreational fear fascinates me, not only because we're capable of experiencing both negative and positive emotions in the same moment, but we're able to learn about ourselves and grow through entertainment. So now you know. That's why you're obsessed with horror content. Thanks for watching. Wow, you made it to the end of the video. You are one of the elite. So beautiful and smart and very, very tall. If you like this kind of thing, I got another video on how D&D makes you a better person. Check it out. Might be fun.